Hey everyone, this is Jessica Crenshaw, and we are back again with Poetry Worldwide. We got a special treat for you today. We said that we are committed to highlighting poets and hip hop artists. So today we got our very first hip hop artist on the show. So this man that we got coming in today, he is straight out of California. I already know that you all are going to feel his vibe. He's going to talk to you a little bit about, his music today. And we're just going to have a really good time like we always do. Now, before we get started, we just want to say thank you to WYTV7 for believing in the goal, believing in the dream that poets, hip hop artists, musicians have a voice and they deserve to be heard. So we definitely want to send out some big love to WYTV7. So, without further ado, we want to invite the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. S.O. Trey. How you doing, man?
Good. I'm really happy to be on here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. It's social media and email is a funny thing. And when we got your email, we definitely took a look at your file and all of your music. And man, we were just blown away. We definitely want to get started. There has been a lot of clamor about you coming onto the show, so we definitely don't want to hold anyone up. So the first question I have, I ask any artist this: how did you get started in hip hop?
It's a good question. Basically, we grew up, me and my partner Subs grew up together. We're from West Los Angeles, you know what I mean? And, we were essentially products of the LAUSD school system, like we went to school where cats were, from junior high on up. It was just all about hip hop. And that was, when in retrospect, a lot of people would say, that was the golden age of hip hop or whatever. And, especially like where we went to high school, we went to University High School in West LA, and it was like hip hop high school, basically. It was like, everyone was you had, a lot of graffiti artists, dudes that were just super into that culture. And that's really what our whole world was about. So we grew up, heavily influenced by East Coast hip hop, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Main Source, groups like that, Brand Nubian, Gangstar, and that kind of influenced our sound a lot. But at the same time, there was groups, on the West Coast too, you had like the Alcoholics and Far Side and stuff like that. And we just kind of, it evolved from freestyling essentially. Like we would just be hanging out with our buddies, coming off the top of the head. When I went to college in Santa Barbara, I met a producer and I was like, you know what, enough of the freestyling, let's actually put a song together. And that's how the group started.
Man, that is a beautiful backstory. I gotta be honest. Some of the groups that you listed, I got goosebumps off of it because Lord knows I still got a cassette tape deck. Like I'm old school. I will throw on a tape in a second and just cool out. So that's why I guess I enjoy your music very personally, because I do hear, especially with the Far Side, I hear a lot of that element in there, especially with the beats. You're very socially conscious, about motivating people, and let's get up, let's unite. You got to get up to get down. So I'm very excited about that. So I did want to ask, on an artist level, what draws you to hip hop? Like out of all of the music that you could do, what draws you to hip hop the most?
Um, I think it's just the aspect of I'm a big word man, like I always grew up, liking poetry, liking, to read and so forth. And, you know, I had an interesting encounter with the rapper Razkaz, who was one of my big heroes growing up. He came to the video shoot for Paper Tigers, which is a song that we did with Mike and Nine for Freestyle Fellowship and the legendary Percy P from the Bronx. So it was kind of like a West Coast, East Coast collaboration. But Razkaz was at the video shoot and I was chopping it up with him. And I said, the reason that I read in college was I wanted to be like you, you know what I mean? And it was kind of like, he was like, wow, you know, I don't know if he ever heard, you know, somebody compliment him in that way. And it's true, you know, it's like that was the kind of influence that rappers had on me, was like, you know, I would sit here and read books trying to get up on game, like how can I like incorporate a larger vocabulary, you know, vernacular into my rhymes. So, you know, I've always been about you know, expression through word, and hip hop seemed like the ideal foray for that kind of communication, especially since, you know, again, I grew up, or, you know, that was what I grew up around. A lot of my friends were big into the graffiti aspect of hip hop culture. And that's something that I have immense respect for, and we pay tribute to it a lot of in our music. But, you know, there's always that, you know, that was at that, especially at that time, there was a lot of kind of like danger, you know, involved in being a graffiti artist. So my way of contributing back to hip hop culture was, I'm gonna be a rapper instead. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I give back to hip hop culture, because, you know, I love the graph game, but it's kind of like it wasn't exactly the right fit for me. So I'm like, okay, so let me do something else. So that's how I got into rhyming more.
Man, and you really, you just, that last little statement, I mean, I think you just said so much. It just wasn't the right fit for me. So I mean, over and above, you're letting the viewers know right now that whatever you choose, you got to be true to it. Like it's got to be at the core of who you are. So I mean, just by that statement, I think you already spoke volumes, you know, to the audience. So I did want to ask, you know, because you got some very, very good questions here. Now, to me, you kind of seem like, I would say, a hip hop purist. So, you know, just very different from what we're seeing and hearing in the mainstream right now. So, you know, since you know, you pretty much started off on the ground floor with that golden age of hip hop. Let me just ask some questions. What do you think is the main difference between hip hop fans of today and hip hop fans of yesteryear?
I think that the main distinction that I would draw is this: is that when we were coming up, having a name was not necessarily an asset. It could almost be a detriment, you know, in the sense that you have a tremendous burden on your shoulders now that you're a famous rap artist. You know, you could be anybody. You could be Nas, you could be Rakim or whatever. People have this expectation of you now that is super high, and you cannot falter. You know what I mean? On the flip side, we could be at a show and some cat could get on stage and no one knows who he is, but if he's ripping it, we're like, okay, this cat is dope. He really has skills. It doesn't matter that no one co-signed him. You know, no one came out and said, hey, this guy's cool or whatever. He's our, you know, our next little guy that we're gonna put out there.
Hmm.
The way the game works now is that it's more about idolatry, in the sense that it's like, you have a name and you can just ride that, and you're, unfortunately, is like, a lot of people that follow these artists, they'll just consume anything that they do without thinking about it. And to me, that's not really music appreciation. It's like, you know, I will go and buy a record, you know, of course, everyone does this. I'll buy a record based on somebody's name because I've known their previous work and I've liked it. But I'm not going to just blindly like something just because a certain artist is associated with it. And I think that was the main thing that I started to see happening in the late 90s, 2000s, was like, you have people that are basically saying anything this guy does is good. And I'm like, I have my favorite artists in the world and not everything they do is good. You know, and seeing that's not music appreciation. That's just idolatry. And I think that's kind of where the standards started to fall. That's where the music kind of started to fall, is that people took their name for granted because they knew that they could do anything, and, you know, their fan base would still be like, oh, that's dope. You know, so that's like, that to me is kind of, that's something that I've always been critical of, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand, you know, what you're saying, because I can kind of just take a brief overview of like just like the the pioneers, the godfathers of hip hop. And I mean, like, they had to be careful about what they did and how they carried themselves, and then their rhymes had to be on point too. So it's almost like you had like a kind of balancing act. But now, just like you said, you can name ride. Me and my friends, when we have discussions like this, we always say that anybody now could possibly be a rapper. All you need is a good beat and a great hook. And we were just joking, hey, let's find another way to make some money other than having a job. And then one of my friends said, let's just be a rapper. So, but back in the day, like you and the other groups, I mean, y'all really had to have good wordplay. I mean, I listen to some of the stuff now and some of the metaphors and similes that y'all kick out. I'm just like, whoa, I'm just, I kind of laugh at it because it's a a metaphor and a simile that's really on point. So I definitely feel you on that. And I did also want to ask, why do you think, real hip hop, like you did say, the Nas, the Tribe Called Quest, I know you said Gangstar. That's probably one of my favorites. How did they start to lose out on the mainstream? Because we're not really hearing that anymore.
Right. I think that one of the things, and again, talking about sort of, in my view, the kind of when hip hop started to kind of go downhill a little bit in terms of like, I hate to use the term underground, but whatever, the real hip hop or whatever, is it stopped being epic, and especially, and I use the word epic in the sense that like you had songs like, like they reminisce over you, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, where it's like you hear this song, you're just like, whoa, you're blown away by it. You're blown away by, a War Tour by Tribe Called Quest, or like Check the Technique by Gangstar.
Yep.
Catch a Bad One by Dell. Like when I heard these songs, I was like, whoa, like the beat is so dope and everything, and it's got this energy. What I started to hear in rappers rap, or underground hip hop, or whatever you want to call it. I hate using the term underground, but let's just use it for the sake of this discussion. Is it stopped being epic? It's just kind of like, here it is. Here's the beat. Here's the rhymes. We kind of just put this together. The musicality wasn't there. They didn't really. There wasn't effort in making somebody feel the way they felt when they first heard this classic music. And that's kind of with our music, I always wanted to go back to being that 15-year-old kid who heard that Tribe Called Quest song, and the feeling that I got from that, that's what I want to turn around and give to somebody else. I think that kind of, there's a sort of lackadaisical approach now to making songs. Maybe it's because of the sheer volume of songs that people need to put out now, that it's sort of been deracinated of that kind of quality and that feeling. It's just kind of more mass produced, and it's kind of like, here's the new track, it's cool, but like, where's the classic material? That's kind of where things started to falter, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can definitely notice, a difference. Kind of. I mean, you got kind of the J. Coles and the Kendrick Lamars that are trying to bring, a little bit of social consciousness back into the movement. But I mean, the groups that you just described, I mean, you could pretty much, back in the day, just tune your radio dial, and I mean, it was De La Soul, it was Rakim, it was Mobb Deep, it was Nas. I mean, so you had a plethora of stuff to really pick from. But I mean, viewers, once again, we're having a very, very deep hip hop discussion with my man S.O. Trey here. I did want to kind of turn the interview, so you can kind of speak to our viewers. Now, we're going to have, some folks just breaking into the game. And like you said, we want to try to keep everybody as cool as possible. What words of encouragement would you have to that young hip hop artist starting out in the game, since you've been in the game for a minute?
I would say, don't, and this goes for anything in life, don't be easily discouraged. Don't trip off somebody saying, they don't believe in you because there's no artist that has not had that kind of experience where it's like there's not there's not going to necessarily be a lot of people around you that believe in your path, and there may be, whatever, irrespective of who says you're good and who doesn't say you're good and this and that, keep moving forward. I mean, we have friends that when we first started rhyming would clown us, you know what I mean? They would just be like, I mean, we're talking like we're little, peewees, we're kids, but they would just be like, you guys aren't rappers, you know what I mean? And now it's like we've done songs with some of the best people in the game, and gotten 4-star reviews and stuff like that in respected magazines. And it took us just believing in who we were and believing in ourselves. And I think, one of the things that can be very discouraging to a young artist is, you look on YouTube and your thing has 500 views, and so-and-so has 500,000 views or 500 million views, and you're like, you feel like that little speck of sand in the ocean, but it's like, don't be discouraged by that. That doesn't make them better than you. There's people that are multi-platinum, that have, back in the day, you don't hear anything about them now because they were a flash in the pan. But the people that actually endured, were the people that had skills and they kept doing it. So cultivate your skills, and try to really think about what kind of music you're trying to put out, what kind of energy you're trying to put out there. I think when MySpace popped off, cats were kind of like, well, because I have the ability to set up a hip hop page, that makes me dope. You know what I mean? And like that's not, you can have all the equipment in the world, you can set up a dope studio or whatever. That's not what it comes down to. Is like, it comes down to you actually taking the time to cultivate your craft, and that's something that I would like to see artists do, is like, listen to people that can really rap. I mean, Kendrick Lamar, is a dude who can really rap. If and talking about epic songs, that song, the song about drinking, I forget what it's called. I was on his first album, but that song blew me away. You know what I mean? And like, it was just the vibe, the beat, and everything. And it was just kind of like, people need to start making those kind of tracks. Don't put out music, put out great music. That's what it really should be about.
Man, well, I do believe that song is called Swimming Pools. I feel that track too. So I mean, it's the beat really just kind of pulls you into the song. So I mean, hey, listeners, I mean, you got pretty much one of the pioneer guys. He's coming in. He's worked with a lot of people. Just telling you, you got to keep it moving no matter what, because nobody's really going to believe in your dream more than you will. So if you don't believe in it, the train pretty much stops there. So I wanted to get into, we're starting to wrap the show up. What type of new music are you dropping soon? What's going on there?
Well, we have a new song in the video we're about to drop with one of my favorite rappers, AC Alone from Freestyle Fellowship. It's a song called Bridges, and we wanted to make really a socially, I like to think all of our music is socially conscious, but this was a music really, about, kind of counteracting the divisiveness that exists in our society, in our world right now, and really reaching across all of that. And, as trite as it sounds, we need bridges and not walls, and that's kind of what the song is called. It's called Bridges. And, we had our in-house production team, so to speak. My man Ways One up in Oakland, my man Film One, who's a cat that we grew up with here in LA. They made the beat. And it's just, it's a song that we tried to make epic, and really kind of reach a lot of people with that message, because now is a time where it's definitely needed more than any other,
Definitely. So you guys be on the lookout for that track and that video to drop soon. I've heard this man's music. I'm letting you know. You guys got to get into this. So I want the audience to connect with you. So how and where can they connect with you? How can they listen to your music, especially that new track that's coming out?
Definitely. Best thing to do is go to substanceabusehiphop.com. That has links to all of our social media. You got us on Facebook. You get us on Twitter. Our Instagram is Substance Abuse Hip Hop. So just hit us up. You know, we love interacting with people. You know, we got people like from Germany hitting us up. Like we played your first 12-inch on our show. You know, all over the world, Japan, whatever. And I love just interacting with people that you know have dug up our old music, that are looking out for our new music or whatever. You know, we've been in the game for a little bit, and we've definitely accumulated a lot of people that have followed us throughout our career. You know, so definitely reach out to us, substanceabusehiphop.com.
Definitely, man. Well, SO, we really, really appreciate your time here. Guys, we just want to speak to you today, to the viewers. Now at WYTV7, we are a Christian Broadcasting Network. So if hip hop head, jazz head, whatever you are, if you are finding yourself without a relationship with Jesus Christ, we want to bring you to that point. You can just say this simple prayer: Lord Jesus, I repent of my sins, come into my life, I make you my Lord and Savior. Now, with that simple prayer, no chanting, no anything like that, we believe that you now have a relationship with the Lord. Get yourself into a Bible-based church, honor God in everything that you do. So once again, we have been speaking to the man, the myth, the legend, the hip-hop pioneer, the SO Trey. And once again, we are Poetry Worldwide, where poets and hip-hop artists have a voice. Are you ready to be heard? Have a good one.